Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of Spurs Diehards TTID Tottenham Till I Die. I have a couple of preliminary things to go through before we start with the main action. First of all, a huge congratulations to Tom and his wife Sophie on the birth of their second child, Cody. Tom, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, second child for you.
I did all the hard work.
Yeah, you've done all the hard work now. The rest of it's down to Sophie, but you know that.
We've been waiting for a winger all transfer window, thankfully. Finally.
Absolutely. And Tom's dad, Kev, that's fourth grandchild for Kev and Carol, your mum and dad, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
boy and girl from me and Sophie, and then boy and girl from Kerry. So
yeah, absolutely. And congratulations to us. God, it sounds a little bit immodest, but I actually don't care because last night was the Spurs Kings Content Creators Award. We won 2 awards. Best newcomer, and we're still in our infancy, and the most underrated channel. And I can, before we went live, Adrian said you were buzzing last night, and you're absolutely right. I was buzzing. I did not expect it, and was absolutely delighted. Just going to say before we go and do the introductions, going to say hi to just people in the chat because there's a lot of people come on, and there's Nita with her. Let's show that. Yeah.
Big up, Nita.
A comment, Nita, if you're still here. Graham Spurs GCTV, thank you, my friend. And I need to move that as a moth fallen onto my screen. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Huge. Milton Nabrega. Yeah, I think that's who did the intro. Yeah, the outro's better.
Oh, we haven't got that outro. I did the intro, and I was saying my throat's just getting better now after doing the vocals. Yeah.
And we'll just say, yeah, thanks, Brian. And this is my 11-year-old grandson who's in trouble for being a naughty
Big up,
boy.
Louis.
So, hi, Lou. How you doing? And I'm sorry, this is so self-indulgent, but
Louis, just ignore your granddad. Don't listen to a word he says.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're downstairs at the moment. So, look, tonight we got this award, I think, partly because of our reputation for some mature, reflective content. But
you don't want me on it. Oh, we do.
Yes, we do. And I want to deal with a couple of things tonight. And one of the reasons I woke up this morning thinking Julie was the perfect guest is I want to deal with Diogo Jota. There's not a lot that hasn't been said, but what I want to deal with tonight is how football deals with death, how football deals with tragedy. For some reason, a game that I've been involved with, where I've refereed semi-pro football, where I've seen coaches who'd happily sacrifice their firstborn for a dodgy throw-in on the halfway line. And yet we all seem to come together at times of tragedy. Julie's very friendly with Rob White, the son of John White. Probably that's the closest I can think of real tragedy we've had of a major star. People remember Peter Southey being in the program year after year. Some of the younger people won't remember that. So I want to deal with that. And then the Thomas Partey situation. It's not a slag Arsenal. It's how football again deals with allegations that are becoming more commonplace of sexual misconduct amongst by players, and in particular the inconsistency. And the examples I've got have been Partey, Mason Greenwood, Benjamin Mendy, and Sigurdsson when he was at Everton. So yeah, let's deal with that. I better just introduce everybody. Julie Welsh, award-winning journalist, Spurs fan for more years than she wants to admit to, which is fair enough, and co-author of a book called The Ghost, about which she co-wrote with John's son Rob, about John White. And I'll let you get this in now, Julie.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Why don't you get this in now?
All right. About around 2008, I was writing some stuff for Tottenham, and amongst the people that I kind of was working on the project with was Rob White. And nobody had ever written his dad's story. Now, I was home from boarding school when John was killed by lightning on Cruise Hill Golf Course in July the 21st, 1964. And I can remember what a shock it was just to see the headlines on the papers. And I mean, we'll come back to that. Obviously, we'll discuss, the news coverage of the Diego Jota and Andre Silva tragedy later. But anyway, so I was quite nervous. I approached Rob White. I didn't know what on earth he'd be like. He was 6 months old when his dad died. But he turned out to be this really amazing guy. I asked him if he would be interested in writing his father's biography with me. So, we wrote this book, The Ghost of White Hart Lane. Fast forward many years. Last year was the 50th anniversary of John White's death. And Rob commissioned another mate of ours, Martin Murphy, Spurs supporter, theatre producer, to write a one-man play, basically, based on the book. Which Martin did, absolute cracking play. They showed it at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where it debuted. Really well received. Went up to the Edinburgh Festival, won an award, Best Newcomer.
Wow.
And so this summer, they're bringing it down to London, Jackson's Lane Theatre, just off Highgate Tube. It's if you hang on, I've got all. No, I won't. Actually, I was going to leave my seat and bring you the playbill, but it basically, it's on. I think the first. I think it starts on 21st of July. Off the top of my head, that might not be quite right, but anyway, if you can get there, if you can get to watch it, it's a fantastically done play. It's just brilliant, just so brilliant. It really kind of tells you the story just in one play with one actor. It's beautifully done. I can't plug it enough. It's just so good.
You didn't do the screenplay, I take it, or whatever they call it, the script.
No, Martin Murphy wrote and produced it. I mean,
okay.
In fact, Martin and I have been working on another project together. We're a sort of joint script writing duo now, but this is all Martin's own work. I just wrote the book.
Julie, how was it for his son doing it? Because it must have been a way for him to get to know his father, because the youngest child was about 6 months old.
Yeah,
how old was the older child? How old was he when his father
Mandy,
died?
his sister, was about 2. So basically, Rob's mum, Sandra, who sadly died in about the first year of COVID, and was a lovely, lovely person. She was this young mum, about 22 years old, left to bring up 2 kids.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it was fascinating getting to know Rob. Sandra couldn't have done a better job bringing him up. And she had the help of members of John White's team, particularly Cliff Jones and Dave Mackay, who used to take, they really took an interest in Rob, sort of showed him some of his dad's world. But, it's a really poignant, it was a really poignant story he had to tell because, as he said, everybody seemed to know more about his dad than he did, really, because, he when, as he was growing up, people would find out he was John White's lad. And, this sort of expression of extreme sorrow would come over their faces. Oh, I'm so sorry. What a wonderful man he was, etc. So it was really difficult for Rob. So writing the book and talking to each other about it, about his dad, getting to meet, people who'd known his dad. It was a marvelous journey for him just to find, just to put together a kind of jigsaw of what his dad was like. So yeah, and the book was a bestseller. Just I'll give it
good. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to steal Ian's thunder, but there is some footage out there about his father because I've watched it. It's breathtaking stuff, like. But so they have some footage of their father, don't they?
Well, oh yes, and I mean, particularly when he was growing up, he'd just sort of watch it religiously as much as he could, just to see if there was any likeness. I mean, I suppose we're talking in the context of the death of Diogo Jota, basically. What the difference now, I'd say, of course, is how much football has grown. I mean, when John White died, it made the front pages of the national press over here. But this time, it's more a sort of global event, isn't it? Yeah. A global tragedy. It's not going to make it any easier. Of course, for the people involved, but that was the first thing that I thought about it. God, it happened at 1:30 in one morning, and by a few hours later, the whole world knew what had happened, basically. And I have to say, this is probably the first day that I've actually been able to speak about it without weeping, because it was such a terrible, terrible thing to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew, I mean, well, Tom, just a new father. Diogo Jota married, 10, 11 days before, 3 children, and his brother. I tried to find out and I couldn't find out, but I assume his parents, given the age he is, are both still alive as well. I mean, it couldn't be more tragic. You couldn't make up tragedy like that. And then when I read that they didn't fly because he'd had a lung operation and the medical advice was not to drive,
I think
not to fly.
That's one of the things which has always sort of stuck in the mind about John White's death. The what ifs, the if onlys. John had gone to Cruise Hill for a round of golf. Rain and thunder was, a storm was threatened. He'd got in conversation in the changing room in the golf club with another a Spurs player called Tony Marshy, who you might not remember well. We interviewed Tony afterwards about it, and he told us, the chat that passed between the two of them. And I just thought, if Tony and John had talked, let's say, for 2 more minutes, then, John would have missed that lightning bolt. He would have been in a different place. And it's the same thing with Diogo Jota and his brother, that if they hadn't driven, if Diogo Jota had just taken a plane, then none of this would have happened. So there's so many what ifs when these things happen.
Life, a thin line there, life and death, Drew.
Certainly is. It's got I kind of had vibes of Emiliano Sala, you know, the guy that unfortunately died in the plane crash as well, on his way to sign for, was it Cardiff? I think
Cardiff,
yeah. I mean, it's awful. It's tragic. And the thing is nowadays is that I think, as you've alluded to, news travels exceptionally quickly now. So not only, you know, do you hear about the tragedy, you hear about it from 10 different angles, 20 different angles, and it's almost just sort of blasted in your face. I mean, you know, you watch a couple of videos and all of a sudden your YouTube feed picks up the algorithm and you're blasted with every disaster that's happened over the last 48 hours. And it's pretty tragic, you know, and you can even, you know, even take football out of the equation. I mean, my heart, I mean, you know, as somebody that's lost both parents, his mum recently, I mean, I have to sort of flip the script, and I think about the parents and how awful it must be for them, you know, just the loss of two kids.
His poor mum.
It's just, his poor mum. So it's absolutely tragic. My heart goes out to, you know, everybody involved, the family, and also, you know, obviously our Liverpool cohort who are obviously going through it.
How do we think that the players will kind of adjust to what's happened? I mean, because they're due to return for pre-season training. Looking back on John White
and Adrian, maybe Adrian, you might remember as well. How did we do in the 64-65 season?
Not as badly as was feared. Basically. I mean, it was a matter of survival, bearing in mind that the whole double team had been sort of falling apart for, well, the 63-64 season. In fact, you know, Danny Blanchflower was totally kind of crocked and about to sort of depart. Dave Mackay had broken his leg again, if I remember rightly. I mean, it was it was extraordinary how they did manage to survive. You know, they never got into the relegation zone. They finished above mid-table. I'm talking off the top of my head here, and what I should have done was actually you know, check my own book for where they finished. But it was they had a better season than was feared. You do wonder how Liverpool would fare. I see somebody is David Clark. If John White,
he's in Leicester. He's a Spurs fan. He's from Leicester.
If John White had a complete career, it's my opinion that he would have been Spurs' greatest ever player. He's only not considered the best because his career was short. I think there's a lot of truth in that, because Bill Nicholson was going to build the team around him.
He came in, if I remember correctly, he came in as an inside left and then played as the inside right. Because the reason I know, because he took over from Tommy Harmer, and I met Tommy Harmer and shook his hand at an Enfield game when they were playing Aylesbury. He just turned up the game. Oh, it's Tommy Harmer. Whoosh, I was over on him like a rash. And but he wasn't. There was always questions about his physicality, about him being able to cope with the game down south, you know. And the Scots have called us Southern softies, and we were worried about whether he could cope with the game. He just seemed to. If he didn't find space found him. He was slight. He wasn't big. He scored a goal in a Cup Winners' Cup final, one of the 5 goals as well.
And he just had this knack. Scorer.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time. He had this knack. I mean, they used to call Martin Peters the ghost, didn't they? But John White was the ghost. I mean, because he had this knack of being in the right place at the right time. If you needed an outball, he was there. I mean, I sort of remember that. I remember my stepfather and relatives talking about him when we were at a game. I was a kid, you know. I'm 8 when we won the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah.
5 when we won the double. You know, so most of it was all this noise around me. And it's like when you're a kid, you don't realise. I mean, you'd love to be an adult and experience that than a youngster, you know, because you can really take it in, you know.
Sure.
But like he was. We only paid 20,000 for him. We got him from Falkirk, didn't we? I mean, so
that's right. Yeah. I mean, the similarities in the present day have always been Christian Eriksen and Luka Modric, because Modric particularly, because you know Modric was similarly is a similarly scrawny little bloke. And I think the reason that Spurs were able to get him in the first place was that, you know, none of the sort of slightly bigger clubs would look at him because of his diminutive size.
Okay.
I mean, and yet Modric is one of the greatest players, like John White, who I've ever seen play for Spurs, and he went on to prove that at Real Madrid.
I'll chuck another name in here. And that's Duncan Edwards. And the first time I got taken to an away match was January '68, Spurs against Manchester United at Old Trafford, third round of the FA Cup. And there was a first time I went to Old Trafford. I've been several times since, and there was the plaque for the Munich air disaster. And I don't know that I knew anything about it until that day. I was 10 years old. It's coming up almost exactly 10 years from the Munich air disaster. And the name Duncan Edwards was raised. That I think two things. One, that Duncan Edwards was expected to live, and Busby, who was given the last rites, was not expected to live, and it went the other way. And that if Duncan Edwards had lived, he might have been one of the greatest centre-backs, centre-midfield players England had ever produced.
There's always these might have beens, of course, but to reverting to what I was saying, I wonder what everybody's opinion is about, you know, how will Liverpool do this coming season, because they'll be the reigning champions when they start. How is it going to affect them? I'm really curious, just, you know, psychologically, what it's going to be like. I mean,
I think it's going to be very difficult. Drew, Tom, we haven't heard from you. Tom, you any thoughts about how you think it might affect Liverpool psychologically?
It's difficult to say, really, isn't it? Because the overwhelming thing that seems to have come through in the media is that he was a big part of the dressing room. He was very community focused as well around Liverpool. He helped out with a lot of the local charities. He was very big into the women's game and trying to push and to promote that. So you never know with these things. The one thing you can say that these players have now that maybe they didn't have back in those days is some of the best sports psychologists, and not just sports psychologists, but like the access to get the necessary help that they need if they are struggling and stuff. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because it goes one of two ways. It can either give you that extra, let's do it for him, or it could go the other way and it could affect them in a very negative way. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just, it's so tragic and sad. And like I said, you know, it's really difficult because you don't want to think selfishly in these situations, but you do relate what's happened to yourself. And it did suddenly make me go, my word, I need to make sure that my life insurance is sorted and stuff like that. Like the fear for me is if I could literally walk out that door tomorrow and something like that happens, and you know, I'm not in a position where I have a football club who's willing to keep paying a very lucrative contract to my family and stuff like that. So yeah, you don't want to think of it selfishly, because it's not me directly who's affected. There's a mum who's lost 2 sons. There's a wife that's lost her husband. There's kids that have lost a dad and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just awful. And yeah, the fact that, you know, as you said, Ian, that it was recommended that he doesn't fly and to drive instead, and that's ultimately what's led to the situation. It's
end of his
horrible.
life. I mean,
there's so many in life. There's always going to be what ifs and maybes and everything with lots of things. It's just sad, very very sad.
I mean, I'm in Spain. My family's with me, or at least half my family. My 13 going on 14-year-old granddaughter is there, as is Louis, who's 11. And you look at this. I mean, I just, you know, thinking of this as a parent and grandparent, the thought of losing a child or a grandchild is just horrific. And I don't know. I just.
I guess the one thing that you can say, and I know, you know, at some point they're going to have to look forward, and I'm guessing the one good thing, or the one, I'd say good is necessarily the right word, but the one thing that footballers will have going for them is their ability to probably, to a certain extent, shut things out. And there's probably going to be an element of, sometimes players, in terms of just transferring clubs, players just come and go. So there may be an element of having to put themselves just in the mindset of, he's just not here right now. So, and they'll just have to get on with their jobs because they're professionals. And, the reality is, when you get to that sort of level in your profession, there's probably an element of cold steel that you have to just kind of get on with it. They'll all have their own ways of dealing with it. They'll all have their own ways of obviously thinking about him in their own time. But I just, I think they're going to be professional enough to be able to put it to one side,
It's all, it reminds you a bit, it must be a bit like being in the army, being, and the same sort of attitude, the bloke is beside you one day and the next day he's not. But you just sort of get on with it. I mean, people, I've heard a lot of people I talk to, particularly psychologists, say that football is very like war in a lot of respects. Certainly the male game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in the profession that I work in as a zookeeper, looking after animals and stuff like that, it wasn't that long ago that I had to, we had a bird that I'd worked with for my entire 18-year career as a zookeeper, and I had to make the decision of it was time for her to be put down and things like that. And we did that in the morning, and then I had to work the rest of the day looking after all the other animals. And not only that, I had to, after she had been put to sleep, I had to package her up and send her off to go to be post-mortemed and everything like that, and then do the rest of the day. And literally 2 hours later, I'm presenting a show telling everyone about how amazing animals and birds are and things like that. So, they will just get on with it. As sad, and that's it's horrible to say that, because but they'll have their time to mourn and grieve and stuff like that. But as professional players, you can imagine that's the second they step on that football pitch, they'll all be back.
Yeah, the shock is when people die young in all walks of life, isn't it? And them or their family members and all that. I mean, we had Dean Southey died of cancer, didn't he? You remember the centre half we got off of Wall, Dean Richards? Yeah. I mean, remember? Well, one of the early ones when you didn't have so much social media, when Laurie Cunningham was killed in a car crash. You remember that? I mean, and then you get to the opposite. You get to actually marvellous people that are timeless and ageless, like Cliff Jones, who must be 90 now. He must be 90 years of age. And I thought he was absolute. The Welsh have had a habit of producing world-class wingers, and he is one of my favourite all-time players, and he's still going. And long may I hope he makes 100. You know what I mean? So,
Adrian, Cliff Jones looks like he could still play 90 minutes. Never mind about.
Do you
remember Spurs games? Go on, Julie. Go on.
Well, no, I was just thinking. If I remember rightly, it was at the last game at the Lane. So 2016-17 season, and all the sort of old players were introduced and things like that. I just remember Cliff just running onto the pitch. I mean, Rob once said that he always looked as though he'd just sort of appeared on A Question of Sport or something like that. He was always sort of so smartly dressed and everything. Yes. And I mean, he just a marvelous athlete, lucky man, just naturally fit and a really good man as well. The way he
must be all that meat from having a butcher's shop, I think.
That was a disaster, apparently. That's what he always says. The one thing about, Cliff was John White's best mate, and when I was writing the Ghost of White Hart Lane, I did quite a long interview with Cliff, and it was, I mean, it was a really strong interview. But the kind of, the way that generation suppresses kind of emotion was so obvious, and I think that's how a lot of them coped with John's death, just by that was what you did in those days, stiff. It was really stiff upper lip. I mean, he gave me one of the best lines I've ever been given in an interview. He said, and he went to see John's body at the mortuary, and he said, and I'm not ashamed to say I cried. And I just thought, what a man. I can just imagine just seeing his best mate.
But now, Julie, there'll be lots of psychologists and behavioural scientists giving them all kinds of support, which you can just imagine Bill Nicholson, but what he would think of that.
Well, yeah, except when Bill called all the players in the day after John's death to tell them what had happened, and Bill actually was so moved he had to take so I can't remember, I think it was Pat Jennings said he ran into the toilets to cry. But it was again there were no psychologists to sort of tell everything to back then. But let's
move it on.
Yeah, it's getting a bit maudlin.
Yeah, well it is, and he's quite a serious show, but I want to talk about the party arrest, and I want to talk, Tom, I want to bring you in here as the youngest member of the panel. Is that, maybe sexual misconduct amongst footballers always took place, but they got away with it, or maybe it's more publicised now, or maybe they're just so highly paid and in the public eye and entitled, they think they can do what they want, basically. Now, these are allegations. I need to be careful here. They're allegations against Thomas Partey. He's now been criminally charged. So I don't want to talk about any of the specifics. But I do want to talk about the way football deals with sexual misconduct. And that's really the topic. I may as well just go through what I want to discuss and where I'm going to take this. That the allegations have been known and have been common knowledge. And I think this is the worst part. If Julie, as a journalist, had printed something like that, she'd have been in contempt and probably up before the judge and spent a few days in Holloway. But we've got comparisons with Mason Greenwood, and there was tape. Benjamin Mendy, who was acquitted and then successfully sued Manchester City for lost wages in the employment tribunal, and then Gylfi Sigurdsson was suspended by Everton, disappeared really without trace, but no charges were ever brought against him. So, just from your perspective, and I say that as asking you as the youngest member, how do you have a view on how football should be dealing with these kind of allegations? And as I say, I repeat, they are allegations.
Just one thing, just before you start, Tom, it would be remiss of us to not mention the fact that Yves Bissouma was also it was also allegations. He was later cleared, but we are a Tottenham community, so
Tottenham signed him, I think, knowing that there was still that investigation, and I think the word on the street, Julie, you may know more, but was that they'd already done their due diligence and that were told that he really wasn't in the frame for much, and the person that he was with was the person that the police were investigating. But it's fair, Drew.
Sorry, what you're saying is correct, basically.
Yeah. I don't think Tottenham signed him from Brighton in the knowledge that he was likely to face serious criminal charges. But that's right, Drew. It's right that you point that out. Tom, let's get your take on this.
I think it's a difficult one because I'm not sure I think the thing we've got to remember here is that there's people that have suffered or potentially suffered. It's a very difficult subject to kind of go around. I like you said, there's been examples where players such as the guy on the screen, Gilky Sigurdsson, was suspended by Everton, never entered the football pitch for them again, but then ultimately no charges were brought. So you then look at that and go, well, was that fair for that situation for him? In that, I think it's one of those ones where you do have to let the law kind of deal with it. But I don't know, that there's just something that's felt a bit odd around this whole Thomas Partey one, with the fact that it's taken 3 years for any charges, and not only that, 3 years for any charges to come forward, and it just so happens to be a couple of days after his contract has ended, like at Arsenal. It just seems really shady from my perspective as someone who doesn't know much of a muchness from the outside looking in. And yeah, it's not great. To be honest with you, I think footballers, there are some footballers who think that because they're footballers, they can get away with doing certain things like that, and that they'll be protected in certain measures and stuff. I also think that actually a lot of these footballers probably are, they're from such an early age, are in the football sphere, that actually they don't go through life lessons that many of other people kind of go through, and how to deal with situations and things like that as well. Again, that's not an excuse. Actually, that's a failing on football for not actually educating people on a life outside of football, whilst they're going through all of their their graduate stuff and scholarships and whatever it might be at these clubs and stuff. But yeah, it's such a difficult one to say. I know in my head I'm just like, I can't, he's been charged. That you wouldn't think that they would charge him without reasonable evidence that he has done something.
No, I'm not going to get into that, Tom. Sorry.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm really looking at the generalizations. I mean, I'm looking, for example, it's not as if we're precluded from saying anything. Looking at the press, particularly the serious press over the weekend, and Oliver Brown on the 4th of July. What date was the 4th? Was that Friday? Was in the Telegraph, I think, under the headline, Arsenal covered their ears on Partey and lost their moral compass. I mean, that was the headline, and quotes about from Arteta in 2022, just talking about Dada and everything he's been through. That doesn't reflect well on any football club, does it?
I don't think. Go on, Tom. Go on.
No, I was going to ask Drew. Sorry, I was asking Drew. Sorry, my fault if I didn't make that clear.
No, I mean, I will echo Tom's sentiments. It's really, really difficult because you can have a personal opinion about it, and my personal opinion differs from the fact that everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and we as fans or we as people from the outside looking in will never really have any idea of the exact sequences of events until way after the fact. So, my personal opinion says, if there's a sniff that this guy has done it, then it's a little bit much that he should, from my point of view, still go out there, earn a wage, do what he's doing, be allowed to, if it's a case of he's, something's happened and it's about just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, that's one thing. If it's he said, she said in the background, nobody really knows, and it's taking that long to gather evidence, it's a little unfair to then tell the person that's being accused that they could, for all intents and purposes, lose their livelihood for 6, 8, 12 months, a year, 2 years on the back of somebody accusing them that we later find out was a half-assed accusation that actually didn't amount to anything. And it was one of those situations where, I don't know, it was done out of spite. I mean, you just don't know, do you? So there's so many if, buts and maybes that it's a very, very touchy subject for anybody to, for us. I mean, I think we're doing a pretty good job in sort of talking around it, but I don't know what the right answer is.
Well, we had that situation with that player for Sunderland was done for rape, went to prison, and won his appeal. And then you've got a situation where the player's dead. I'm not defending, wrongdoing, but then you've got a situation where the player's lost time out of his career and earnings. When they're guilty, they should be hammered and whatnot. I don't think there's any difference in football as there is in general society. I think you've got this for all walks of society. It's just that with football, it's highlighted. These are our heroes. It's highlighted, and there's nothing. Excusing Julie here. There's nothing the media like better than building up someone and tearing them down. So like you get that situation as well. With we all know players are involved, and funny, isn't it? When it's our player, all of a sudden you're all praying that he's innocent because he's one of ours, right? But if it's an Arsenal player, hang him, hung draw and quarter him. Let's destroy him. His career may never play football ever again. But. And I'm sure, look, society's changed a lot for the better in the early years. I'm sure Julie must have suffered, as the first female reporter, must have suffered chauvinism and probably misogyny as well. Allegedly, Julie, you must have suffered loads of that. So you would have seen the changes. So what changes have you seen? Have there been? There must have been. I hope there's been positive changes.
In terms of sexism, I think the sexism still exists. I mean, we're talking sort of the 1970s when I was sort of, 21, 22. And I mean, I was just groped all the time. But the ones who behaved themselves were the players. I mean, I was never, ever groped by a footballer. I don't know whether that says about my charms. I think that a lot of this is it's male behavior, and along with entitlement can lead to bad situations for girls, women. I mean, there've always been girls around football. My own sort of take on it is, yes, people are innocent until they're proved guilty. I think the he said, she said argument may not hold water particularly, but it is very, very hard to prove rape, basically. And I'm not sure even if this thing comes to trial that it's really going to have any effect. It's just a terribly, terribly difficult issue to talk about because it's kind of blurred lines to me.
Do you think? But are you hopeful? Do you think there are more safe pairs of trousers out there nowadays than there were back in your day?
I don't know about that. I mean, I talk about it in a light-hearted way. I mean, when
you need to read Julie's book. It's in the Fleet Street Girls.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tony Waddington, the Stoke manager, who grabbed me and kissed me in the press room, which was absolutely mortifying. But yeah, that was about that was the dodgiest incident that ever came my way in football.
But where I wanted to try and draw you on is that Mason Greenwood never faced any, or he did face charges, and then hang on a minute, I've got my things pulled out here. Something's just gone wrong here. Sorry. Yeah, with Mason Greenwood, he was initially charged, suspended by Manchester United. There was audio, and one of the things about rape, about rape is that there's usually two people, and it's he said, she says, and it's a notoriously the rape statistic convictions rates are horrific for a woman. They are horrific. No wonder so many women just think, to hell with it. I'd rather not bother reporting it than go through the hell of reporting it being disbelieved and what have you. Never mind about the indignity of the internal examinations, etc., required to even put a prosecution case together. But with Mason Greenwood, there was an audio, and that audio was a horror story. Julie, you heard it?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it unfortunately, exactly. And Man United suspended him, and he's not playing for the club again, although he's never faced a day in court as a result of it. And I gather that relationship
he did what a lot of footballers do in that situation. He bought himself out of that situation. Now he's playing in France, isn't he?
Well, he's now permanently with that woman. They got married, or certainly that relationship.
It's such a difficult area to judge when you don't actually know what happened. I think, and it's just terribly difficult to sort of comment on because of that. As you say, and
Julie, I don't have an issue passing comment on that scumbag for beating his girlfriend up. I mean, that is not normal mental behavior for a human being. That is not. To like women being the weaker sex, that is not. I mean, you can have an argument, you can argue with your opposite partner, whoever they maybe are, but there's no reason to get violent. You lose the argument as soon as you're violent anyway. You should know, it's wrong. You should walk away from it, right? Calm down, get away from the situation.
I think that in football now does its best to kind of what Tom was talking about. Teach life lessons to young men who have had whose lives have just been not like normal young men's lives, and there are a tremendous amount of temptations for footballers, particularly young ones. There is one story I was made aware of. A young footballer, everything all before him. He was invited to a party, went in, and there was this naked woman there, Hollywood fit, just lying down with a line of coke from her navel to her, her lady, her lady garden. That's just that's the sort of thing that boys have to face. And what do you do? You just have to kind of guide them through that. You've now got the porn culture as well, haven't you? Which might have fed into Mason Greenwood's behaviour. I don't know. I mean, this is speculation. Probably not a good idea. So
no. It was just when I was looking at this, is just how inconsistent football is. But I put this up. Blaine, thank you so much. Thanks for your comments. But your a donation to the channel helps us enormously. So thank you, hugely. I mean, I think that comment's been made about 4 days or 2 days, whatever it was after his contract. There's just something not right about that doesn't sit right with any of us.
I think we are like unduly influenced when you hear it's, even though it's sub judice, when you hear that it's 5 women and he's faced, and whoever it is, whether it's football or not, and they're facing 5 separate charges against 5 different women. It's a bit hard, not even if you're the most biased person. I'm not talking about party here. I'm just saying when you hear these cases of people when it's more than one.
And there's my grandson is still up saying hi. Yeah, I'm not taking you there, Adrian. I'm not letting you go there.
Fair enough.
I think the one thing I can say is I don't think Arsenal have dealt with this situation very well.
Yeah.
Is that, especially when you then also hear that he got bailed 7 times as well over that period, and the club clearly knew everything that was going on with this situation.
Well, it's really where I wanted to take it, is where do clubs go? As I say, Manchester City suspended Benjamin Mendy. He went to court. He was acquitted, and then he says, "Well, you haven't paid me for this time that I wasn't playing." And when you're in police custody and what have you, you can't play football. You don't get your wages. But there was other times when he was perfectly free and able to play football. And the tribunal, employment law is my field, said, no, he was available, ready, willing, able to play football. There was no reason why he couldn't lawfully play football. If you didn't pay his wages, that's your problem. And he won, I don't know, £3 million in wages.
Well, quite right. Absolutely right. Yeah. The law is the law.
Yeah, and this is the dilemma. Guys,
well, you would think that the clubs at this point, if it's going to become, or if it is, in the background, if it's a genuine problem, and it's even more so than we know, because let's say of every 10, 15 cases of this happening, you only hear about 1 or 2, and it's like a real issue, then clubs need to start writing it into a contract, some sort of, if you find yourself in a position whereby you're even in custody for something that, constitutes X, Y, or Z, then we have every right to, terminate employment, terminate money, do this, that, or the other. And that would, you would hope that at that point it would, because I'm not going to say it can't be every footballer, right? But there's got to be, I'm sure, and there's a proportion or a percentage that would deter them from maybe putting themselves in positions that they, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't be in, because one thing or the other could happen. Be it they could, they're idiots and they're, I guess, sexual predators, shall we say, and they can't help themselves, in which case they shouldn't be in that position anyway, or they're a target for somebody to try and make some money out of them, or as I say, it's got to be incumbent on the clubs to say we'll cut you off. Like you've got to give an incentive not to do it, right? I mean, it horrifies me that I should have to say that. Like, I mean, this really falls on society, and it's a much bigger issue. Like, this isn't just footballers, but being as we're a football show and we're talking about it because it's who it happens to be. There's just
what's your take on this? I mean, because this is affecting women. Obviously, we're talking about the effects of bad behaviour on women and all that. And what do you think about actual? Can't clubs get around this with players with the disrepute rule, or what? I mean, is this contracts now so difficult to get around with players, or?
But what
I don't know about contract law at all. I mean, I'm sure that I'm sure in the case of Tottenham Hotspur that everything is done perfectly, and that is absolutely watertight.
I mean, I can come in with my employment law knowledge. I mean, yes, I mean, there would be a standard clause about bringing the club into disrepute, as it would be in any, you've had contracts of employment, all of you, which has probably got a clause, if you look at it, any conduct inside or outside of work that brings the company, the zoo, the business into disrepute. But what is that? I mean, you're not named in an allegation. I mean, if you're charged with an offence, I mean, it seems to me the logic would be to say if you're charged with a serious criminal offence, as in one that would could lead to a prison sentence of, say, 2 years or more.
Takes that long to get there, right? You've got to then see that through.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that stick in the throat with this, and about Arsenal losing their moral compass. But at the end of the day, he was never charged with a criminal offence while he was an employee of Arsenal Football Club.
Yeah, I mean, and we do. You'll know more about this, Ian, but you do get a lot of situations where there are incidents in all walks of life where you've got an employee that's suspended on full pay.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know,
right.
like Drew's alluded to them, because then you might be suspending a player, might be losing out on his career for 2 years, even though he's getting the money. So that's another complication.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to go. I've got a dinner arrangement, but it's been lovely to share the screen with you for an hour.
Well, you're here, Drew.
And I will,
thank you as one of the 4 admins of this club for helping us
through
this club.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I've got Ange on the brain and Frank on the brain and everything on the brain. No, for your contributions as being part of this group, because you run an excellent show, you get excellent guests on, they all help to enhance the show. Your appearances on other show helps bring people to this show, and your contributions, like I believe, help like all the other 2 lads here in getting us these awards. So thank you a lot.
Well, thank you very much, mate. I very much appreciate it. Julia, it was lovely to meet you. Ian, Tom, I'll see you again soon. Adrian, I'll see you next week, mate.
See you Friday,
Take care, guys. Take care, chat. Have a good one, boys. Girls. Bye.
Okay. I mean, my issue is there just genuinely is no consistency. I mean, the thing is, I would say that unless someone is charged with an offence, you really can't do anything. I mean, anybody can make an allegation. My issue, I think, with Arsenal is, and where I think they lost the moral high ground, is when Arteta's coming up with statements like, and everything he's been through, when he's alleged to have been a rapist, with no suggestion. I'll be careful what I say now, as to the efficacy or anything else of those allegations. At worst, at worst or at best.
I just don't see how you could come up with a document that covers every angle that players.
I don't think you can.
It's just not possible, because every case is different on it, isn't it? So you just can't do it. It's a minefield, and we all want what's right. We all want justice. You don't see too much of it in this world, but I mean, we all want that. But I just think these things they will continue. Because it's part of society. The saddest part,
59:16. I thought if we did half an hour on death, and we did half an hour on
we've got so many people off joining the show already.
And there's people coming on. If we have So let's talk about let's move us on to some of the more positive things in life, like actually signing players. The noise this afternoon, the white noise, was that despite allegations that Chelsea are going to come in and what have you, that Kudus is only interested in coming to Tottenham. We've made an offer, and it's just personal terms aren't a problem, and it's just a matter now of Levy getting his wiping off his checkbook again and getting the last few pennies out of his piggy bank to fund the deal. Tom, let's assume this happens over the next 3 or 4 days. What's your view?
I think it's a very, very good signing. I mean, the amount of times I always go, if we get him for 50 million, then great signing. If we get him for 70 million, then terrible signing. Well, the player doesn't change depending on so if it's a good player, it's a good player, irrespective of the money, right? I think he is just the type of player that we need. He is a ball carrying, dribbling, expert. That's what he specializes in, being able to take on players and thing. His end product could be better, but it's not terrible. I mean, last season he wasn't great, but nor West Ham. So I don't think that can solely fall on his shoulders. I don't think there was a single West Ham player that covered themselves in any glory last year. But I think for me, between him, Eze, and I think actually he, for our current squad, makes more sense than Eze. I still think there is a spot for Eze, and I would get both personally. But I think it's a good signing, and like listening to how much West Ham fans. I've listened to a few West Ham YouTube channels, just I want to see what they're saying about it. Listening to how much hurt and pain they're in about it, and how they're trying to pass it on. Oh well, he's not that good anyway. He was terrible last season. Oh well, you know, I'd rather. But then they're like, but I'd rather him go and join Chelsea, or I'd rather, 50 million's not enough. We should be getting 65 million. But I don't care about him going because he's not that good. Well, you clearly do. So I think he'll be a good player, and I think the fact that he's coming in and he's coming into a position where there's competition, I think is a good thing as well. He's not coming in just to slot straight in as a first 11. He's coming in to compete, and that's the important thing.
I'm trying to reconcile the fact I've watched videos of him. He's a good player. He won half of his take-ons last season and lost half. He doesn't score enough goals for me, but then I have to temper that with he was playing in a slightly better, crappier team than we were last season, right? Because they finished above us, right? Which was true, right? And the fact that with Frank coming in, he'll be among a better squad of players, which makes me hope. And one of my favourite sayings is hope is not a strategy, right? But I hope that Frank gets an even better tune out of him and he can use those take-ons and score more goals. Because my argument has always been, we've got a front three. I want a front three that scores goals. I don't want Messi and Ronaldo on the wings if they don't score goals and they look pretty. You know, that don't win you anything, right? So yeah. I want the signing. Because, I want more, obviously. I want at least 3 good signings in, and Kyle Walker-Peters to help us increase our Champions League squad to 15 foreign players instead of 14. But no, I want him. I think we'll get the deal done. I think it'll be done for about 60 with the add-ons. Right? So, Levy.
I think
it's not something I can get excited about. I would
I'm not excited about it. I think
Eze is a brilliant player. He's the sort of player that we should be signing. We won't get him. I can't get worked up about Kudus at all. No. I mean, I take your point that he, in playing with a team which was marginally less crappier than ours last season.
Julie, we've only seen Cliff Jones, Ginola, Chris Waddle,
exactly.
And now we're talking about Kudus, right? He couldn't lick their boots personally, So I get that. I get that from us.
Do we think Eze's dead in the water? Because
no.
I just think he's such the player that we need on that left side.
Yeah.
The thing is, if
Julie as well, Julie's like drooling,
Look, he is so good. I even watched Crystal Palace because of Eze. He just brilliant player. We deserve him. He's the answer.
I think for me though, if Eze was coming in, I wouldn't be playing him as that left player, because Frank tends to play them more as left forward rather than left winger, and actually Eze I think would be probably in competition with Maddison for that central attacking midfielder kind of spot. That's what I would generally see. But then I'm not the manager, and Thomas Frank obviously.
Tom, you got a really good tactical appreciation, but the way I see Frank setting up would be, for example, with a plain back 4, which would be assuming no one leaves the back 4-5 that started in Bilbao. Bentancur and Bergvall, and then you've got Eze, Maddison, and Kudus across that front 3 with Solanke as one up front. That would be, to me, an ideal way of setting up a Tottenham side.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that's a bad option in the sides. I think that's it. I think it's options, isn't it? That's the one thing we didn't really have last year was options. It was one way or no way, and having variety, which Thomas Frank as a manager gives you that instantly anyway, irrespective of the personnel in players. Having variety in how we can play. the one thing, is we just have no idea really what Thomas Frank's going to do, which is kind of refreshing. But we can all speculate, but over his time as a manager, he's never stuck to one formation. In fact, even last year, the formation that he used the most, he only used it for 50-something% of the games that Brentford played. So that's not a huge amount and stuff like that. And going back to Kudos a little bit, I know, obviously, Adrian, you said that he's only successful in 50% of the take-ons that he attempts. Well, Lionel Messi, who is the best take-on specialist in the world, is only successful in 62% of the take-ons that he attempts. So actually, I would much rather see a player attempt to take players on than a Brennan Johnson who doesn't ever. He's successful every time he attempts to take a player on because he never takes a player on. So if you actually had statistics back in the days of Ginola, back in the days of things and their take on percentages and stuff like that, I think you'd be surprised at how low their percentages of success and that sort of things. If you look at Ginola's goals and assists ratio, it actually wasn't that great, but he was a magical player that could produce a magical moment, and that's what us as fans resonate with, especially
one thing we know for certain with Frank, he plays a narrow midfield pivot. Fans recently have got obsessed with the number 6 because they wanted us to be better defensively in midfield, protect the back four. But he plays the narrow midfield pivot. So I'd rather see 2 monster number 8s in there that can do the job. Definitely one with someone alongside, whether it's a Bentancur and Bergvall or Bentancur and Gray or a Bentancur with someone else, as long as it's not Basuma. I want him out of the club, right? It's like, then it's okay. And like I think I've said on other podcasts, Frank wants to get 3/1 overloads on the left or right hand side. So then if it's on the right, the left hand fullback drops in as a centre back, a bit like Mourinho did under his system. But he also, what I find intriguing is he doesn't like any lazy players in his side. So if you're hinting about Johnson's work rate or even Maddison's work rate, I mean, Damsgaard at Brentford, he always put in his shift, right? I can see Kulu pushing Maddison out that side at games in the number 10 position and taking over. I can even see, because he doesn't tell his wingers, I think a lot of problem with Johnson last year wasn't the fact that he is a quality finisher. I've seen it now. I've warmed to him. I didn't want him at the club, but I warmed to him because, I think when even Werner was there, who sadly got a Europa Cup winners medal, right? Got to throw that in. But I mean, who tells his wingers to hug the touchline and stay out wide and not come back, right? I think that was a lot of issue with Johnson. It's not that Johnson hasn't got the energy to put a shift in. I just think he's not been told, like, if you don't put your shift in, you're not getting in the team. And I can even see Decky playing out wide on away games as well, because he plays a more narrow front three, what I've seen. But I've watched a lot of Frank's videos, I've got to be honest. So I could be talking out of shot, and I've been known to, right? So back to you, Ian.
Yeah, no. Well, let's because I'm not going to go through every transfer rumour. Be here till 3 a.m. It's gone midnight here. So Nita poses a question, and I don't know whether we want, she's not asking that we want Romero in or out. Do we expect Romero to be in or out? Julie, let me start with you.
I fully expect Romero to be gone, I must say. There might be some sort of deal with Atleti. We might get Conor Gallagher in part exchange. Would that be acceptable? For
me, I think Gallagher could definitely suit Thomas Frank as in one of those, deep in double pivot. Absolutely. I think he could, because he's a player that works hard, presses well, can win the ball back. He's got an eye for goal, and he can go forward. Do I think he's an absolute superstar? No. Do I think he's game changing for us? Probably not. But is he an upgrade on Basuma? I'd probably say so. But how much of an upgrade is debatable, because actually Basuma on his day is fantastic. Problem is that only happens maybe 6-7 games of a season, whereas Gallagher, you're going to get a more consistent performance from.
I mean,
people
I've
know
said
my
this
stance
before.
on this. I'd rather go and get a beast like Fratesi from Inter Milan. I think he's better than Gallagher. And just on the Kudus thing, just want to throw this at you, right? Basuma to West Ham. He worked under Potter at Brighton.
Who knows? Who knows? You can play. We can play.
That's a tumbleweed question, wasn't it?
The problem is it's difficult. We can play Football Manager all we want, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of players that I would ideally want us to get.
What sort of gap will Romero leave? What will we miss about him? I mean, he is the consummate hard bastard, isn't he? Which is always the kind of player we need, and always been the kind of player that we've tended to lack. So if he's gone, who's going to be the hard bastard?
Look at his games in the Europa League, right? Them last 3 games away. He's man of the tournament. Before half-time against Man United, we're 1-0 up. He got the players in a huddle before they went off for half-time to give him a chat, right? I think he's a fantastic centre-half. Now, I know like all players at Spurs, fans either love a player or they hate a player. You know, they're Marmite. That's normal. I ain't got an issue when people don't like players I like or vice versa. But I just think you don't let your best players go. We're in the Champions League. You're going to let a player of this quality go. There isn't a better passing centre-back in this Premier League. There isn't. Right? There just isn't.
And my disagreement with you there, Agent, is I completely agree. You don't let your best players go, but I disagree with that. You only let your best players go if you get the money that you value them at. So if we value him at 70 million, then if someone comes in with that money, and he wants to go, then actually I think you say
a lot of the chat around him, was before we won the Europa League about him going, all these comments or so-called comments that were made to media here, there and everywhere, and most of them just stir the shit anyway, especially with our club, right? So most of that, now he's won a Europa League. It's not like he's not the sort of player who's going to stamp his feet and demand, refuse to turn up and train and all that. He's got a World Cup to come up next year as well. He's not going to do that, right? So like Levy can string. Listen, Levy. One thing you want in your corner on negotiations is Levy. He can string it out longer than Gareth Bale. He kept Gareth Bale for another year, right? When him and Modric left in 2012 and 2013. I mean, he strung it out. Kept them for longer than we had them, and I'm glad we did. I always want to watch the best players at this football club. I'm a season ticket holder, right? I don't care about the money, right? So that's my attitude. And I think we should hold him to his contract. You've still got a year. You would still get 30, 40 million from Romero next year. And if we have a cracking season, he might sign an extension. You know,
Thomas Frank has a no.
I think he'll stay. I could be wrong, but I think he'll stay.
Yeah, I think you're wrong. And Thomas Frank has a no dickheads policy. And I think if Romero, who, let's face it, some of the stuff he does, you just put your head on your
He has dickhead tendencies, basically.
What the hell? Listen, I think if he wants out, let's get money. But what I'm more interested in is why, if he's the world-beaten centre-half we think he is, why there's not a queue out there of clubs wanting to take him. The top clubs. Well, why did PSG not want him? Why do Real not want him?
Real Madrid, they'd love him as a replacement for Ramos. Huh?
I was just going to say, PSG don't need defenders. So that's not something that they're after. You know, Real Madrid, they don't need defenders. Barcelona don't need defenders. In fact, Barcelona are trying to get rid of defenders. I think the problem is that the only teams that can probably afford to pay the price that we think is worth is Saudi League or the Premier League, and that is this huge financial well of money that was in football transfers over the last 5-6 years is very obviously drying up in the leagues outside of
the European Transfer League is still in a period of deflation. They're still recovering from COVID, basically.
There's no way you'll see teams now spending 136 million on a Philippe Coutinho. That was just ludicrous. 200 million on Neymar. Come on. It was absolutely ludicrous, the money that was being spent. But what it just seems to me now is that every player no matter their quality, is like 50, 60 million. That just seems. Solanke was 60 million. Kudus is 60 million. Every player is 60 million. Like it just
it's the sort of bog standard fee now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, 20 if it's 25 million, it's a bargain or it's a crap player. 60 million is just to guarantee that you know the bloke can run.
And we know about crap players.
We've had our share. Can I just take this moment? Thank you for having me on the show, because I'm off now, and it was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
Julie, thank you so much.
Yeah. And congratulations again for being numerous.
You must let us know how
you
must let us know how the play goes, the length of the play, and come back and tell us all about it.
Oh yeah,
so
will do.
Just one last plug, particularly for those people who are all coming in from all over the world, but those of you that are in London, North London, Northwest London, etc.
Yeah, 21st July onwards, Jackson's Lane Theatre, just off Highgate Tube, The Ghost of White Hart Lane, the story of one of the greatest Spurs players ever, John White, The Ghost.
Good luck with it, Julie. Let me know how it goes,
Thank
please.
you. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
How do I get out? Oh, yeah.
You just
coming on to
the studio. I can probably get rid of you if you want. There you go. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I can kick anybody off I want.
Bring. Yeah.
Okay.
You can get crazy if you want.
Adrian, you doing a show on Tuesday?
Yes, definitely doing a show on Tuesday. Probably more of this transfer bullshit that's going on, but by then, I think we're going to get Kudus. I actually look. I'm hopeful. I know one of my favourite saying is hope is not a strategy, and the reason I base that on all this talk about Levy, he does it all the time. He got no money and all this. Just. I mean, if you just take in consideration that since the stadium opened in 2019, we've spent over something like 1.2 billion on players. The net spend might be about 700 million or whatever it is around the area. But each season, that's been about 120 million, right? And that was when we had a year and a half of COVID, where we lost. So that's what? That's 18 home games, 27 home games when we're averaging 6 million a game, right? And I don't know if we'd have lost on advertising because we have not got no fans at the game to watch the adverts. But say 25 at 5 million, right? Losing a game. That's 125 million we would have lost. And yet we still managed over those years here to spend about 120 million each season. That's been about roughly our average net, right? I'm expecting the same now. The signings of Danso, Tell, Kota, Takai. You know, we've now got Max Verstappen from Leeds and Oliver Both from Leeds and someone else, I forget, right? So, so these guys, right? Max Verstappen, for those that know from Leeds, he's a striker, he's an under-16 striker. Pair him up with Williams Barnett. My God, them under-16s are going to do well next year.
Is the Irish boy's not there, is he?
Melia Mason.
January.
Oh, sorry.
And then you got the other guy who's there, George Feeney as well. Yeah. So I'm not having it. We haven't got no money and we haven't spent anything yet. And we've got 17 mil coming in off of Højbjerg. We still got some of the Kane money. And she believe that's all been paid for. Gil's got to go. We don't know what's happened, whether we're going to loan Valise and hope that he plays well and increases his value and just pay the wages and suffer. And we don't know what's going to happen with him. You know, so there's millions here and there. We don't have Manor Solomon staying. You know, you don't have Basuma's going. Please God.
I think the difficulty,
the
4 years, Adrian, is that yesterday was the first day that any of the players were back at Hotspur Way for training with Thomas Frank. So, as much as it's frustrating that we haven't signed any players because we know what players we think we need to improve on, or actually we think we know based on the football
But
we were
this is
playing for the
why.
last 2 seasons.
This is why I don't believe what I consider, even from good tier media outlets now, which are printing bullshit as well to fill column inches because there's not much happening, right? This is why when you hear stories about Romero and Son and all that, and they're not even back at the stadium, they're on holiday, you know, that like this is happening. The player said this, he said that. It's rubbish. We'll get some more this week coming now. You'll get more truth. Players will actually be back, right? So I think you'll get, you know, you get a bit of concrete here, whether like what's really happening with Romero, what's really happening. I mean, apparently Son's staying there. Hope he does. Frank's going to need all the experienced players he's got next season. He's never managed a team in Europe, so now he's going to be playing a game at once every 3 days instead of once every 7, right? I mean, I want him to do well. I'm sure we all do. I'm sure he will do well, actually. You can't do any worse than we did last season in the league, let's be fair. So, like, I'm confident he'll do well.
Not without getting relegated, anyway.
Yeah, exactly that, Tom. Exactly that. Yeah, so, like, you know, and I think we will get 3 signings. I think we might start off and get the fans going at a meltdown and getting toxic because we might get Carl Walker-Peters first, right? And then, like, get Kudus in and Carl Walker-Peters during this week, and then or confirmed. So is they're like showcased maybe next Monday or something, the way Spurs do things, and then we'll see what other business we're going to do. You know, we've been linked with a few odd strikers. Mind you, Kudus can play across the front 3. He can play centre forward as well. So and then we'll see what else we bring in. I'd love to get an Eze with him. If we couldn't get Eze, I'd love Xavi Simons. I think he's more a frank player. You get more consistency with a Xavi Simons, and I think you would even with an Eze. Although Eze is the player that get you off your seat, you know, with flashes of brilliance. But
all right, well, listen, we could do this speculation for hours. I'm going to leave something in the pot for Tuesday. I've got a funny feeling you might have a signing or two to talk about, Adrian. So just the 3 of us. I'm going to say we'll leave the show there. Adrian, we are winners. We are big winners.
Yeah, listen, I want to thank you guys. I mean, like you, Ian, being co-owner of the show and co-founder, Tom being an admin, Drusilla being an admin as well. I mean, like, I'm just the guy that sits on the back feet, goes and gets all the information, supplies with the information, bombards you with videos and information to annoy the crap out of you. And you're very welcome to delete the stuff that'll bombard you with. There's so much of it that, like, you probably haven't got time to look for it anyway most of the time and delete it anyway, but you're still getting it, right? Because it's what I do, right? So, I mean, my idea has always been to push the channel and keep push, and I never stop, right? But you guys, you go out there, you reach out more than I do to other channels. I usually wait for an invite, whereas you guys get regular invites. You go out there and you're being out there. And when you host shows, your guests and all that, you keep the quality and the content of the show up, which like helps to promote us. This is why we probably got most underrated channel and best newcomer as well. So big thanks to you guys. I'm not taking the credit. I'm giving it to all you. I'm giving it to you guys, you know, for the work you do.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian. I think it's been a great team effort to get these awards. And if you're in the chat or you're watching, if you haven't liked and subscribed the channel, please do. It helps us grow enormously. There'll be another show.
Plug the channel as well if you want. I will. Let me just give. I haven't plugged the channel because I didn't know what he was going to say then, right? But guys, I mean, out there, those of you that might be new out there, we've got 104 of you watching on various platforms. I mean, we have got a Facebook group, which I started over 6 years ago, which has got 14,500 members in it. Probably some of them helped us win these awards, I should imagine. So, and we've got a XCOM group, ex-Twitter group, 3,200 in there. We've got a Facebook page, the videos go out there as well as on XCOM. You know, we've got a WhatsApp group. Any of you out there are welcome to come on our shows and be added to the WhatsApp group. All we need is your phone number to add you to the group, which is what we use actually as a pool to get guests on the show as well. But like, thank you for watching us. A big up to everyone that's watching us on playback as well. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Take the time to do that. I think I'm not sure I'd have the patience to do that, you know. And yeah, and we go out every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 o'clock. I usually host the Tuesday shows. Drusilla hosts the Friday shows. Ian hosts the Sunday shows. The Tuesday shows may go Wednesday, Tuesday when we're in the Champions League. You know, depending on whether it's a pre-match game or a post-match game. I'm not rushing home from the stadium on a Tuesday when we got a home game to do a show.
No,
right?
absolutely.
I'll do a post-match show on a Wednesday, right? So it will be the same. We're not going to change because we want you. Once you're all used to the time to go out, you know, Spurs Diehards are on. Then it's up to you whether you've got time to give us to come and have a watch, you know. But a big up to the chat, especially for all your chats. Could have been a bit more cheerful tonight, guys. To be all honest, like, you know,
it was a bit more doer than
I think we got a little bit morbid in there, you know. But like, okay,
there's a comment there in the chat about.
Yeah.
So I wanted to join the. I don't know your first name, so sorry. Wanting to join
please,
the WhatsApp group.
If you can look, even if I put my number in there, I'm not sure WhatsApp will have it. I don't know. Even Beast of TH. I can put. Look, I don't mind putting my phone number in the comments, right? And I'll do it now, right? Right. Let me get it here.
Brave man.
Yeah, I don't mind. No.
Yeah.
I can hack this. Don't worry.
Oh, there you go. Follows on Facebook. You might be able to.
Oh, hang on. Beast says if your friends on Facebook, that should do it. You should use Messenger, Adrian, rather than using your own personal number.
Too late.
Well, a bit late because I've done it, right? So that's my mobile, 075493844. If you want to phone up and abuse me in the channel, you can do. I'm used to it, right?
Jeff just joined.
I get enough pelts off of Tom and Ian and Drew, right? So like I can hack you, right?
Just when I'm knocking it off, but yeah. What's Louis? What's up with you? Go to bed. It's 12:30.
Big up to Jess anyway. Big up to Jess in the channel.
Louis,
we got a bit of a close association with Leeds actually.
But yeah. So great, Tom. Sleep?
Yeah. No.
I haven't heard a squeal in the night.
No, it's all right. Yeah, no, they're all the way upstairs. So, but to be fair, he's quite good. So he's not too bad at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, Tom, you're going to have some sleepless nights.
The next 25 years are the worst, mate. Remember?
Yeah, and being a parent, you're never going to stop worrying. It's just goes with the territory. Like,
so anyway, look, from us all, thank you all for coming.
Thanks for your votes, everybody out there. Really appreciate your votes. It really makes what we do worthwhile. We will continue to bring you good content.
I actually yelped last night, and my family who are downstairs were like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I think I think they thought I was squealing because something bad had happened, right? So
I think we had. I mean, to let you know, Marlon, and I want to plug Marlon and Ash on Spurs Kings for doing this. I mean, fantastic effort, guys. First time you've done it. I'm sure if you intend to do this like every year, it will grow and grow. I mean, you got 2,500 people. Marlon said with Elijah hosting yesterday, doing the 3-2-1s, like who finished third, second, and first in each category. I'm sure that like if you do this next year and the year after, obviously we won't be in the categories we're in this year, but I'm sure you'll get more and more people vote because it was a good effort, especially. I mean, when you consider that you've got like Chris Cowlin, Ricky Sachs on Last Word of Spurs, you've got Sean Butler, you've got We Are Tottenham TV, and these have got massive followings. I mean, like, I think they just let it happen rather than like go and pump their members to vote for them, because otherwise there would have been thousands and thousands of more people voting. That's why I didn't think we were going to win anything, basically. But we did, which I think we got a lot of neutral votes. Plus, I mean, like, we do have a bit of a reach out with all the groups we're in. There's thousands that I'm involved with, So, and I did pump the link out to them, but I don't know who voted. But I just appreciate it because it does make, we do get a warm glow inside having won an event, because like like you say, we do put a lot of work goes into shows. There's a lot of research. Ian?
Yeah, no, that's us. I'll hopefully be back with the show. If there's nothing to say, we won't do a show. But if we can find things even to do an hour and a half, then I'll absolutely be here next Sunday. So is it my music on the way out?
No, it's not, Ian. I kept it short so as we get in the back room earlier, right? So it's just a minute one. But I'm sure you'll like it. We will vary him. I'm doing loads more music, right?
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see
you in the back room, guys.
Friday, and hopefully next Sunday.
Until I die.